Good morning. It's just after 5 here outside of Calgary, and our family had a little bit of excitement yesterday later in the evening or later in the afternoon where Stu got stung by 10 wasps. And that had him go into anaphylactic shock, and we had to get him to the hospital. So he has been overnight at the hospital. And last night became a little bit of a longer night for the kids as I just let them play it out and play with their cars and play with their books and just have the routine go a little bit differently than normal. So interesting to watch kids play it out. Really interesting to watch them play it out. Anyway, the good news is with a solid shot of Benadryl, he is doing well. They just didn't want to send him home in the middle of the night, given that we're in a small town. We're not actually in Calgary right now. We are in a small town outside of Calgary. So they just didn't want to send him home in the middle of the night. So he's all good, but Mama, wifey, is a little bit tired. Now you might be asking, then why are you here? Because I love you guys, and I love doing a little bit of movement in the morning before I get on my day. So that's why I'm here. And who knows, the kids are usually asleep at this time, but who knows, it's a bit of a different morning. So they might trottle down here and join us in for a little bit. So anyway, that's really interesting, right? So the other part of this is we also all need to take care of ourselves when a lot of this dipsy dirtle apple cart turning over happens. So this is going to be a bit of a mixed bag. I've got a block here. We're going to start into a bridge pose. With a block under our hips, and then we're going to get into some hip work and do a little bit of twisting. Okay, so on your back, grab your block, and you choose. Like this is a bit of a mega block, so you choose whether you want to do lower, whether you want to do middle, or do higher. Now, like I said, it's just after 5 a.m., so I'm going to go lower. Okay, you choose. So you're coming into bridge and taking the block underneath your hips. And we're just going to stay here. And just easy breathing. And just feel yourself breathing. Notice where you're at. Notice how your day's been. Notice how your night's been, depending on when you're logging into this. Let your legs settle into your hips. Let your pelvis settle onto the block. Letting your shoulders just rest here on the mat. Easy breathing. Okay. So now from here, let's take the block away. Take a moment just on your back and feel what you feel. Bring one leg up, rotate the leg bone, take the ankle on the knee. That pelvis was quiet, right? And that leg bone is moving in the hip socket. So the idea here is this leg bone's rotating in the hip socket. The outer hip is helping generate that movement. Front of the hip is quiet on the way out. Good, and then let that foot come off and bring the other leg up to the sky. Rotate the leg bone, pelvis is quiet. Ankle comes onto the knee, and let's get into that rotation. Now watch on the opposite side as well, that front of the hip is quiet. Sometimes we can lever off of that foot. All right, lovely. And then take that ankle off. Okay, roll on up. And let's come into a quasi-sitting position. And you're going to take a ball, a massage ball. Actually, I'm going to grab a bigger one. All right, so you can do this one of two ways. You can do this by sitting on the ball. So I've got my right butt cheek here, putting on the ball. The hands come in behind. You can be here. Now, if you've got wrist issues or elbow or shoulder, or this is just too darn much, then you can come onto it like this. You can also come right onto your back, right? Or you can use the wall and stand up against the wall. So you choose what makes the most sense for you. Remember, it's not, because I'm not demonstrating doesn't make it any less effective. The way that I teach is I want to teach you about how your body is working. And then you then decide what is the thing that makes the most sense, right? There's no point in doing a movement that is way beyond your capacity unless you're just doing it to see if you can do it. Okay, now what we can do here is if you're in this position, I want you to notice something. See how my leg bone is coming up towards my belly now? And I rotate it as I place my ankle on the knee. All right, so that is changing. Let me just grab something. Keep on the ball. That's changing the orientation. That's changing the orientation of the leg bone in the hip socket. Okay, so bringing the leg. So if I'm here in a bent knee position, right, and the hip's at this angle, and I'm using the ball in and around my hip, and then I take the leg up higher, and then I rotate that leg bone in the hip socket, I now get access to other tissue. Okay, so play around with the orientation of that leg bone in the hip socket. Love it. And let's go there. Okay, so just play around with the orientation of that leg bone in the hip socket. And then you can even roll onto the outside of the hip. A lot of people find some good stuff onto the outside of the hip. So if you're down here, you can come over onto the outside. If you've got the mobility, you can come up here. You can also just roll that, take the leg up like so. So you can do it, you can, wherever position you are in, if you've got the ability and you're not gripping and embracing and holding your breath, then you can play around with where that leg bone is in your hip socket. Yeah? All right, good. Okay, so let's just play around for a little bit more here on this side. Good, and then let's go to the other side. And just coming all the way around and through that hip. Good, and then the ankle can come up to the knee if that's what you want to do. You just play with that. Play with where that really makes the most sense for you. And remember, you don't have to push something to, like you don't need to force through something that's not moving in order to make it move. I have found that in the experience of teaching people and also with myself, that's just one of the slowest ways of progress is trying to force. Okay. Actually, we were on the other side for quite a bit, so let's just be here for a little bit longer. When you feel like you're balanced between your left and your right side, then we'll move on. Okay. So there we go. Okay, now from here, then come onto your back again. And let's just notice if there's any difference. So take that ankle back up, take the leg bone, place the ankle on the knee, and start to move that leg bone in the hip socket. And then bring it back and just notice if there's any difference pelvis was in that. All right, lovely. Okay, ankle comes off the knee now. Perfect. Now, we're going to take in the block. You can also use a roller. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. You can take a block here, and then you can move the block into a twist, right? So you can move it this from here, from tabletop, and in this way. If you do it with a roller, you can be here. So let me actually do it this way. I think this orientation might be better. So the idea with a twist is that we're not just dropping to the floor, because then that becomes more of a forward bend. And I want to focus in on moving into a rotation. The other movement is fine. It's just not what my intention is right now. Okay, perfect. And then other side. Okay, perfect. Okay, now let that go and grab your strap. And with your strap, take it buckled and bring it about shoulder width apart. Okay, so now you can do this in kneeling or you can do it in standing. Okay, so you're going to take the strap and bring it up above your elbow on either side. Okay, right above your elbow. So that's what it's going to look like. Try to keep the buckle. My buckle ended up being on my arm. Try to keep the buckle in the middle. Okay. Now you don't want this to be so snug that you cut off circulation down towards your hands. So you don't want to have the feeling of a full hand. But you're here, and then the movement is here. Arm bone in the shoulder socket. So it comes back just like so. Yeah. Good, and then relax that. Okay, and then again, bring the arm back in the shoulder socket. Good, now bend the elbow so that your forearm is parallel to the floor. So now when you bring your arm bone back in the shoulder socket, this isn't happening. So pay attention to that. You're going straight back. You don't need to pull your shoulder blades together. You could, but that's a different movement. Think about just keeping your shoulder blades where they are, keeping your ribs where they are, and just moving those arm bones back in the shoulder socket. That's it. Good. Okay, good. And then drop the strap into your hands. And now hold it into your hands. Now same thing. Bring it back. And notice where, with the intention of where the strap and your elbows were, if there's any distinction with how your ribs feel. So sometimes with the hands in any of the positions, there's more of a tendency for the ribs to jut out. So it's not about holding in through the upper abdominal muscles, right? That's just another compensation and can actually limit your breathing and your diaphragm movement. So just move the arm bones back as far as your ribs don't need to poke and as far as you don't need to hold those ribs down. Good. Okay. And let that go. Now notice what you feel. One more. We're going to take the arms up overhead, take the strap a little bit wider, arms come up, and circle those arms. And again, the articulating joint is arm bone in the shoulder socket. So notice if you want to do anything with your ribs. Good. And then other way. Okay, perfect. And then bring that down. Lovely. Okay, palms down, elbows back. Articulating joint, arm bone in the shoulder socket. So arms move wide like this. And then flip the palms and come this way. So it's palms down, palms up. Palms down, palms up. So the articulating joint is here. Okay, it's not this. That's a different movement. Not a bad movement, just different. It's this. Yeah? So again, watch to see that it's not your ribs poking out. And then exhale, 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 exhale. There you go. And 2. Good. And then let that go. Okay, now stand and now notice where you're at. Okay, feeling the bottoms of your feet. Bring weight over to one leg and let's take that ankle up onto the knee. And now let's do a very gentle sit. Good. Now come back up and bring this leg out straight. Watch if you want to raise those shoulders. Bring the leg back, rotate it, and then sit. Be aware of the ribs, be aware of the belly, up, out, and your leg might come down here, totally fine. Rotate the leg bone in the hip socket, up, and sit. Good. And then up. All right. Bring the weight over. Ankle up. Sit. Now, one thing to pay attention to is sitting. It's like you're sitting into a chair as opposed to just keeping the knee popping forward. Think about it coming into the hip socket. Okay. Good. And then up. Watch the shoulders, watch the abdomen as you bring the leg out. And then back. And then sit. There you go. And then up. Whoop. And then out. And then sit. So just watching, you can see the band of my shirt that throughout the pelvis is staying relatively level, and the movement here is hip and knee and ankle. Good, and then up, and then here. Okay, now stand. Good, and come into a chair. So through the hips, knees, and ankles, come into a chair. Just ground this out. And then come up into standing. And now notice how you're feeling. Where your breath is. And just where your overall mind space is. Great. And then come back down to the floor. Grab your strap. Let's come into a soup to parang. Do a little twist and then we'll finish up. So we'll start off by taking that strap in and around the foot and bringing the leg up to the sky. Now with the opposite leg, you can have it straight or you can have it bent. It's completely up to you. Just pay attention to your pelvis and pay attention to how much pressure you're putting on the strap. And if you're holding the bejesus out of the strap, and then bring the strap into your opposite hand and bring the leg across your body. Good. And then bring the leg back. Good. And bring the foot down. Other side. Leg up. Leg across your body. Pelvis stays on the ground. And then from here, stretch the bottom leg out, hold the knee with the opposite hand, come into a bit of a twist. Shoulder girdle stays on the ground. Okay, good. And then coming on back. Perfect. Okay, and then other side. Twisting that in. And coming on back. Awesome. Okay, and now here we are. Lying on your back. Knees can be straight or they can be bent. Now just feel what the heck you just did to your body for the past number of minutes. And feel the response in your body and how it is and what it is that you're feeling. And then when you're ready, slowly begin to make your way back up. And like always, you may have a desire to go and do something more active or something a little less active. So whatever it is that you choose to do next, you have a great, great rest of your day. And we'll see you next time. Mwah. Take good care.